the Georgian Armed Forces, is the name of the Unified Armed Forces of Georgia. The Georgian military is a defense force consisting of the Georgian Land Forces, Georgian Air Force and a paramilitary organization, the Georgian National Guard. The national defense policy aims, based on the Constitution of Georgia, are to guarantee the preservation of the independence and sovereignty of the state and the integrity of its land area, territorial waters and airspace and its constitutional order. The Armed Forces of Georgia are under the authority of the Georgian Ministry of Defense. The armed forces were established in early 1917 from former Russian Imperial Army units on Georgian soil, irregular militias and Georgian personnel returning from WWI front. Armed forces consisted of the Regular Army and People's Guard in 1918 to 1921. On March 23, 1994, Georgia was one of the first former Soviet republics to join the NATO Partnership for Peace program. Among the partners, Georgia was the first country who could submit the special documentation, and on October 29, 2004 the North Atlantic Council approved the first individual partnership action plan for Georgia. History. The Georgia Train and Equip program training was conducted using U.S. Special Operations Forces and U.S. Marine Corps forces from May 2002 to May 2004. During this time approximately 2,600 Georgian soldiers, including a headquarters staff element and 5 tactical units, received training. Another assistance program, the Georgia Security and Stability Operations Program, was launched in January 2005 as a continuation of the of 2002 to 2004. Georgian contingents were involved in the Kosovo Force and continue to participate in the operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. The GAF have been extensively reformed in the recent years to meet Georgia Euro unregistered trademark S aspirations to join NATO and for better response to the existing challenges such as the ongoing tensions in the unresolved separatist conflict areas in Abkhazia and South Ossetia as well as to the threats of global terrorism. Georgia also views a large-scale foreign invasion and the spillover of conflicts from Russia Euro unregistered trademark S North Caucasus as the worst potential near and long-term scenarios, respectively. On August 8, 2008 the Georgian military conducted an operation in Georgia's breakaway region South Ossetia. The operation led to an armed conflict with forces from the Russian Federation and resulted in the defeat and expulsion of Georgian forces from South Ossetia and Abkhazia. Following the military operations, Russia recognized independence of the regions, declared a decade ago. The military budget of Georgia increased more than 50 times over the period from 2002 to 2007, reaching over 7% of Georgia's GDP. The military budget was then doubled to the end of 2008 and currently since February 2009, counts 660 ml in Lari. 21st century. In August 2008, following a series of fierce clashes in South Ossetia, Georgia attempted to take the separatist territory by force. In the resulting military conflict with Russia, Georgia was driven out of South Ossetia and Abkhazia, and lost parts of its military capabilities. According to Defense Minister Davit Kizerashvili, Georgia lost $400 million of material worth. Russian forces confiscated a total of 1,728 firearms. Out of its original 200 T-72 tanks, more than 35 were lost, including 24 that were captured intact. A total of 50 pieces of military equipment were captured, and some others destroyed. Parts of Georgia's relatively modern artillery and anti-aircraft units were captured and later destroyed. Russian forces sank 4 Georgian naval vessels in the port of Poti, a Coast Guard gunboat in a naval skirmish, and hauled away 9 rigid-hull inflatable boats. The Georgian Air Force lost 2 L-29 jet trainers, 1 AN-2 airplane, and 4 helicopters, all destroyed on the ground. Despite these mostly non-combat losses, President Mikhail Saakashvili claimed that Georgia had lost less than 5% of its military hardware, disagreeing on Georgian military figures. Reconstruction Georgia immediately began a process of rearmament after the war. The conflict was immediately followed by a very quick replenishment program of the gaps in the single GAF arms components with an additional massive re-equipment and modernization program. 2 Georgian naval vessels sunk in Poti were raised and returned to service, although one had to undergo repairs. Although their heaviest armaments were 25 to 30 mm cannons. The Georgian Navy's remaining operational naval units were merged into the Georgian Coast Guard, which received training in search and seizure tactics from the United States. Ukraine delivered munitions and artillery systems to Georgia in September 2008, and later supplied Georgia with 12 T-84 and 25 T-72 tanks, 3 BTR-80 armored personnel carriers, 60 portable air defense missiles, munitions for rocket launchers, and anti-tank guided missiles. Ukraine continued to supply shipments of arms to Georgia, and announced that it would only stop if the United Nations Security Council imposed an arms embargo. Israel supplied Georgia with firearms after the war. The United States also delivered large amounts of arms and military equipment to Georgia after the war, and trained Georgian personnel. Israel sold Georgia numerous unmanned aerial vehicles, and supplied Georgia with 2 helicopters. The United States also trained Georgian soldiers to be deployed in Afghanistan. Georgia also rebuilt its damaged military bases. In August 2010, Georgia was reported to be spending 30 times more on its military budget than on economic development. By late 2010 the Georgian military had reached a strength greater than pre-war levels and, after completing the reforms, decisively reduced military spending. Since 2010 Georgia started to produce its own line of armored fighting vehicles, small arms, artillery systems and unmanned aerial vehicles. 2014 NATO Summit in Wales. The most recent major reforms started in late 2013 and have been expanded by the NATO Wales Summit Resolution of 2014. NATO officially announced the complete support of the country's efforts in establishing the efficient military force that is required to defend the country against any regional threats and agreed on delivering high-end sophisticated defense capabilities and boosting the overall quality of the GAF. The package also includes a group of NATO experts monitoring the process in order to control and ensure its successful implementation for the given time period. Further, a large training center for joint military drills will be constructed. NATO did not state that it would directly arm the GAF but fully assist in acquiring requested military hardware and that it would lift the general arms embargo on Georgia that was in effect since 2008. After the last major conflict with Russia, Georgia repeatedly was denied the delivery of modern anti-air and anti-tank weapons and other heavy equipment despite heavy shortage on said weapons and numerous demands and harsh criticism from both the former and current ruling parties. Almost immediately after the summit, U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel announced during his visit to Georgia that the U.S. will start providing long-requested UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters, which is an arrangement reportedly outside the NATO package. Russia reacted very critical to the plan of building an international training center in Georgia, claiming it would bring instability to the region. The statement was denied by NATO, reminding that Georgia is a PFP member and already provides similar capabilities such as an Alpine warfare school for NATO and partner nations. Alternative to MAP equals, despite knowing that there wouldn't be any newcomers announced during the Wales summit, the Georgian government was confident that their country would at least receive the Membership Action Plan, which is the primary precondition for aspirant nations to become NATO member. Instead of the MAP, Georgia was offered an alternative route which got accepted by the country's officials yet was received with very mixed feelings. The new level of cooperation brings Georgia onto the list of special NATO partners together with Sweden and 4 other countries. Organization. The current overall strength of the GAF as of 2013 is 43,475, including 37,825 active duty personnel, 1,940 civilians in education sphere, 533 in health insurance and 3,177 for supply duties. The Georgian legislation had established that the strength of the armed forces should not exceed 37,000 up to the year 2011. However, current regulations on the size of the armed forces are unknown. Recruitment and size have been increased since 2012. Limitations do not extend to the state of war, military reserve and temporary staff of the Defense Ministry of Georgia. Georgian Land Forces, National Guard of Georgia, The land forces form the largest component of the GAF, responsible for providing land defense against any threat to the national unregistered trademark sovereignty and territorial integrity, supporting border police in border protection and civil authorities in counter-terrorist operations, as well as providing units for NATO-led and coalition operations abroad. They are organized into infantry brigades, artillery and other supporting capacities operating at a battalion level. The Special Force Brigade is responsible for conducting reconnaissance, unconventional warfare and counter-terrorism operations. The Georgian National Guard organizes and trains reservists in the peacetime and mobilizes them during a crisis or wartime. In addition, there is the Army Logistics Provision Command and the Military Training and Education Command, which supervises the Sachkhere Mountain Training School. Ground arms. The structure of the Georgian Land Forces is based on brigade and battalion-sized military units. The main force consists of 5 infantry and 2 artillery brigades with additional brigades or battalions attached. Georgian brigades have a total manpower of up to 5,500 plus each, including non-combat personnel. The overall strength of the land forces is 37,825, from which 21 are high-ranking officers, 6,166 officers and sergeants, 28,477 corporals, 125 cadets and 388 civilians. The ground forces are equipped with a great variety of weapons and vehicles. Special forces operate independently under MOD direction. The Georgian Land Force consists of following combat formations. Regular forces. Headquarters, Land Forces Command, Central Command Point. Operational Command East, 1st Infantry Brigade, 11th Televi Light Infantry Battalion, 12th Light Infantry Battalion, 13th Shavnabada Light Infantry Battalion. 4th Mechanized Infantry Brigade, 41st Mechanized Infantry Battalion, 42nd Mechanized Infantry Battalion, 43rd Mechanized Infantry Battalion. 5th Infantry Brigade, 51st Light Infantry Battalion, 52nd Light Infantry Battalion, 53rd Light Infantry Battalion. 1st Artillery Brigade. Operational Command West, 2nd Infantry Brigade, 21st Light Infantry Battalion, 22nd Light Infantry Battalion, 23rd Light Infantry Battalion. 3rd Infantry Brigade, 31st Light Infantry Battalion, 32nd Light Infantry Battalion, 33rd Light Infantry Battalion. 2nd Artillery Brigade. Independent units, Engineer Brigade, Air Defense Brigade, Separate Light Infantry Battalion, Military Intelligence Battalion, Signal Battalion, Medical Battalion. In 2011, the Georgian High Command decided to divide its military forces into 2 main operational units: the Eastern and Western Operational Groups. The aim was to create 2 independently acting military districts which would consist of forces in accordance to the strategic value of their deployment areas, yet being balanced in their type of equipment. In case of war, each group will be able to coordinate its operations independently from High Command, having its own logistical and administrative reserves. Special Forces. Special Forces Brigade, Operational Headquarters, 1st Special Operations Group, Naval Special Operations Group, Mountain Reconnaissance Battalion, Support Maintenance Battalion, Special Forces Training Center. Georgian Special Forces are subordinated under the MOD Special Operations Main Division to a brigade-level command structure. Each formation is split into several subdivisions which are allocated on different Georgian regions, cities and strategically important areas. Most units are composed of veterans of past conflicts, including the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, the wars in Georgia and the insurgency in Chechnya. Some soldiers served in former Soviet Army formations in Russia and the Ukraine. Since 2001, Georgia has intensified the training of its elite forces in cooperation with American, French, British, Israeli and other countries' special services. Georgian commandos participated in the Iraq War from 2003 until the complete withdrawal of the Georgian contingent in 2008 due to an escalation of hostilities in South Ossetia. According to independent accounts, A number of Georgian operatives were also deployed prior in Afghanistan to aid U.S. Special Forces in hunting down Taliban leaders. Georgian officials have stated that a group of servicemen were deployed in Afghanistan for medical purposes. Army Air Section equals. The Strategic Defense Review in 2007 described the Air Force consists of aviation and air defense assets and provides security to Georgia unregistered trademark S airspace. The Georgian Air Force was merged into the Army in 2010, and was renamed the Army Air Section, undergoing massive reorganization and restructuring. The additional operative section of the Georgian Land Forces currently consists of an unknown amount of planes, transport helicopters, gunships and 3,000 personnel. The Georgian Air Force lost 2 helicopters on ground during the 2008 South Ossetia War. 2 major airfields are located near Tbilisi at Alexieva and Manilai. Georgian Coast Guard equals. In 2007 the Strategic Defense Review said the Georgian Navy protects Georgia unregistered trademark S territorial waters and contributes to the collective maritime defense in the Black Sea region. The Georgian Navy was abolished in 2009 and was incorporated into the Coast Guard, which is not structurally part of the Georgian Armed Forces, but rather it is a subunit of the Border Guard of Georgia, which is under the control of Ministry of Internal Affairs of Georgia. The Coast Guard of Georgia is responsible for maintenance of the sovereignty of the country and for protection of internal territorial waters and economic zones. The headquarters and a principal Coast Guard base are located at the Black Sea port of Poti. The other, smaller Coast Guard base is in Batrami. Besides the naval force, the Navy also includes a special counter-terrorist detachment force. Georgia is also one of the founding members and a participant of the Black Sea Naval Cooperation Task Group. Before the war with Russia, the Georgian Navy had 19 naval vessels. 4 of them were sunk during the conflict, and 9 rigid-hull inflatables were captured by Russia. The Georgians raised and returned to service 2 of the sunken vessels, and partially replaced their losses with Turkish-built patrol fast attack boats. Their heaviest armaments are 25 or 30 mm cannons. However, no Georgian Navy vessels are armed with ship-to-ship missiles. National Guard of Georgia equals. The National Guard of Georgia was established on December 20, 1990 and was manned mainly by volunteers. It represents the first Georgian armed formation, which became the base of the foundation for modern Georgian Armed Forces. The Guard actively participated in the conflicts that occurred in Georgian territory. The National Guard used to consist of 20,554 personnel, but has now been reduced to 550. The main missions of the National Guard are, support civil government in crisis situations, register mobilization resources, study and deliver, convene, select and man of citizens on the basis of the agreement, for the units, subunits and bases of the armed forces, provide ceremonial activity support, assisting in training the reserve forces. Army Reserve and Territorial Defense Forces equals. The Army Reserve is a professional reserve force consisting of former regular Army personnel only. Due to the amount of experience, the reserve personnel would be set in for replacement of losses in the ranks of regular formations and will if needed also operate in the vanguard of a combined mechanized group or an infantry assault. The equipment does not greatly differ from that of regular Army, even though it has not the same priority level in terms of supply and logistics. The Territorial Defense Forces were established for immediate readiness of the population in crisis events, such as war. Its main goals would be the fortification and defense of war-populated and strategically important areas as well as providing quick aid or security for evacuation operations in case of natural catastrophes. Other than the active Army Reserve which consists of only ex-military personnel, the Territorial Defense Forces are rather sparsely prepared for complex military operations. It instead provides more comfort for the regular forces in case of war, by acting as additional logistical arm and leaving the actual combat to them. With the Land Forces and Reserve Army engaged in direct action, the Defense Forces' most important task would be to construct trenches, bunkers and obstacles around strategically important areas and position themselves on systematically formed defensive lines. The number of conscripts does not exceed 140,000 and is reasonably large, as it is in the strategy's intention to use any possible geographical advantage over the enemy, when professionalism is compensated by that factor. The conscripts are generally poorly equipped compared to their land forces counterparts. The number of combat, protection gear and supplies will be most likely limited in the event of war. The Territorial Defense Force consists of ordinary citizens of all occupations who undertake training in the basics of modern warfare. The weapons trained on are mainly of Soviet origin and abandoned material used formerly by the regular army, including tanks. Such weapons are the AK series assault rifles and rocket-propelled launchers PG-7. Commissioned officers International cooperation. Georgian Armed Forces have been participating in peacekeeping missions since 1999. Units participating in peacekeeping missions are manned by professional soldiers. The duration of the mission is 6 months and participation is voluntary. The readiness assessment criteria are, as follows: health condition, physical fitness, professional skills and experience. Peacekeeping missions About 200 Georgian troops were deployed in the Kosovo in 1999 to 2008, 70 were deployed in Iraq in 2003 and 50 in Afghanistan in 2004. From 2004 in Iraq were 300 Georgian troops. From 2005 approximately 850 troops were serving under coalition command. On July 2007 Georgia sent an extra 1,400 troops to Iraq. That brought the total number of troops in Iraq to 2,000. About 300 of these troops were assigned to Task Force Petro and stationed at COP Cleary outside the town of Warhida near Salmanpak, Iraq. On August 8, 2008 Georgia announced it will withdraw 1,000 troops from Iraq due to rising hostilities with Russia. Their preparedness and training skills are evaluated on highest level by international experts. The entire Iraq contingent has been airlifted back to Georgia. Hence, owing to participation in international peacekeeping missions, the military members are able to obtain practical experience and to show readiness to cooperate with NATO and with other partner countries' forces. Currently there are more than 1,570 Georgian combat troops deployed in Helmand, Afghanistan, where Georgia has thus far suffered 22 deaths and over 100 injuries. In September 2012, Georgia stated that it would continue its contributions in Afghanistan following the 2014 NATO withdrawal. In November 2012, Georgia had doubled the number of troops deployed to fight with NATO-led forces in Afghanistan to over 1,500. Georgia has 1,570 troops serving there, making the small Caucasus country of 4.5 million people the largest non-NATO contributor to the Afghanistan mission. Since 2014 Georgia has also contributed 140 troops to the EUFORCA peacekeeping mission in the Central African Republic. Commanders Commander-in-Chiefs of the Democratic Republic of Georgia Georgi Kvinitads, May 26, 1918 December 13, 1920, Ilya Adishelids, December 13, 1920 February 16, 1921, Georgi Kvinitads, February 16, 1921 March 17, 1921. Chiefs of General Staff of the Georgian Armed Forces General Kitatlets, August, 1991 December, 1991, Avtandil Tskitishvili, January, 1992 December, 1993, Goram Nikolaishvili, December, 1993 January, 1994, Noda Tatarashvili, January, 1994 June, 1996, Zurab Parishvili, June, 1996 May, 1998, Jonits Kalashvili, May, 1998 September, 2003, Givi Ukurids, February, 2004 August 25, 2004, Vorktan Kapanards. August 25, 2004 February 18, 2005, Levin Nikolaishvili, February 18, 2005 November 2, 2006, Zaza Gogava, November 2, 2006 November 4, 2008. Chiefs of Joint Staff of the Georgian Armed Forces equals Vladimir Shchibla, November 4, 2008 – March 5, 2009, Devi Chankatades, March 5, 2009 – October 8, 2012, Georgi Kalandads, October 8, 2012 – November 11, 2012, Vorktan Kapanards, November 11, 2012 – December 4, 2012, Irakli December 4, 2012 – November 22, 2013. Chiefs of General Staff of the Georgian Armed Forces equals Vorktan Kapanards, November 22, 2013 – Military industry. Georgia has a long history of weapon production tracing back to ancient times. More recent developments however have their roots in the Soviet Union. In 1941 Georgia became one of the most important Soviet weapon manufacturing countries during the Second World War. It was responsible for providing the Soviet Army with all types of aircraft and ammunition. Tbilisi aircraft manufacturing's role didn't change after the war. Up until 1990 Georgia was constantly producing various types of fighter aircraft, most notably the Su-25 since it was produced almost exclusively in Georgia, unmanned aerial vehicles, missiles and satellite components. The company lost most of its functionality and production capability when the Soviet Union dissolved, yet was not abandoned. In the late 1990s Georgia's JSCRMP and later the newly established Ministry of Defense Section Delta started to work on the development of ballistic equipment using their own ingredients. The Advanced Research Unit had successfully developed a variety of personal protection gear, such as bomb disposal suits and Level I-4 body armor using classified mixtures of domestic resource. But these projects never went beyond some prototypes, mainly due to poor attention and financing from the government. With foreign support primarily from the United States since 2005, Georgia became able to start building a solid industrial base for the military. From 2001 to 2007, Delta experimented with unmanned aerial vehicles and modified parts for helicopters and Su-25 aircraft until it got involved in the modification of Georgia's T-72 tank fleet. Indiana, 2009-10, with enough experience and expertise and the assistance of designers Vyad Sikolia, Delta created its first prototype of an armored personnel carrier, the Djori. Early tests were highly successful so that its first production line started already in 2011. Two versions would initially serve in the armed forces in 2012, followed by different modifications from 2013 on. The Lazica is Delta's attempt to manufacture a suitable modular infantry fighting vehicle created for multiple tasks. While still under development, some Lazicas are already in active service. Delta considers the Lazica as one of the best vehicles of its class bearing armor technology similar to that of Israel. The remotely operated systems are locally produced as well. Due to misdirected financing, and heavy interfering of former government officials, Project Lazica was temporarily cancelled in late 2012, also due to sabotage and shortcomings in its armor research, but then later continued in early 2013 when a newly elected government took charge. As of 2007 Georgia is domestically producing uniforms for its military personnel. However early products were of cheap quality and such shortcomings were corrected not earlier than 2012. Since then only high-quality fabricates are licensed for use. Other main production lines include various types of artillery systems such as MLRS, mortars and corresponding ammunition. Anti-tank weapons and devices. Full uniform sets, ceremonial and for all service branches, those are boots, hats, assault vests, pouches and backpacks etc. New kind of ballistic vests and helmets are being developed and produced for military service since 2013. The Georgian production bears techniques based on know-how from aerospace research which methodics differ slightly yet significantly from foreign analogues. Among the first units to use these new items is the peacekeeping contingent currently stationed in the Central African Republic. Georgia began working intensely on military projects after 2008, since then Georgia has developed and produced Lazica Infantry Fighting Vehicle, Djori 1, Djori 2, Djori 3 Mine-Resistant APC, ZCRS-122 multiple rocket launcher, G5 carbine, unmanned aerial system Road 7 anti-tank mine, Scorpion silent pistol, 9mm pistol, underbarrel grenade launchers for G5 carbine and copy of Soviet GP-25 and Romanian AG-40, modified Georgian variants of a PG-7, a PG-22, a PG-18, PDM-1 copy of a PG-26, a PGL-7G, 60mm, 82mm and 120mm mortars, PDSHP anti-materiel rifles. Bases. See also, Georgia and NATO, modern equipment of the Georgian Army. References. This article incorporates public domain material from websites or documents of the United States Department of State. 2005. This article incorporates public domain material from the CIA World Factbook Document 2005 edition. Further reading, Denise Hammack, Country Briefing, Georgia on the Cusp, Jane's Defense Weekly, January 2, 2008. External links, GeoArmy GE, an information website, Ministry of Defense of Georgia, the Strategic Defense Review 2007. mod.gov.ge. Accessed on May 7, 2008. Globalsecurity.org on Georgia unregistered trademark S military, Ministry of the Defense of Georgia, Armed Forces of Georgia. Accessed on March 6, 2009. Military Heraldry of Georgian Armed Forces.